Are we live? Good. Right. So, hello, welcome to Bees Talk with Alexandru. Today it's a bit of a different one as I have a real guest. Here it is today, Dave Gabosh. Is that right?
That is correct, mate. Very well done.
Okay. 25 years old. So I'm going to read because this is a long one.
It's a lot.
But I want to do him a proper introduction like he deserves. So, born in Košice.
Košice. That's very
Right.
close. Very close.
You are not religious, as in the
Spiritual.
true and in the true definition of the sense
Mm-hmm.
of the word. You say you've been outside of the social groups, but more so as in looking in from the outside.
That's how I always felt.
We're gonna talk about that. And you into cars, like I am as well.
Very much so, mate.
As we both work into composites and
That's the
Formula
first chat
One.
we had.
Yeah. And you own a very humble Honda Jazz. So that's a big difference between me and you. That's a big difference between me, flashy, look at me, who I am and all that. But I like that. I like humbly. I am humble in certain ways as well. You like adrenaline and motorsports. We're going to have to talk about that.
Hugely, my friend. Hugely.
Yeah. I've got a few interesting stories you might like to hear. Also, everything that goes along F1 as we speak. And what else? There's a lot here. You're not materialistic, obviously. And
I do have minimalist beliefs to a certain extent, of course. Do you know what I mean? Because there's only certain level of sacrifice that you're willing to go into, right? So there are certain things that you're not happy on giving up, but it's if they add enough value into your life that you think, okay, do you know what? Owning that thing adds more value than it takes away energy from my brain thinking about that thing. It's worth it.
we're going to talk about ownership as well. We're going to talk about ownership. I have a quite a specific mindset about ownership. You like traveling the world and freedom. Obviously, being a contractor,
I
that
love it.
helps. Blinds in. That's good. I like that. You go brother and a sister. Okay, so I'm an only child. I'm a
Are you actually?
spoiled one.
Very interesting.
Though I come
Explains
from very,
it all.
though I come from very humble beginnings as a child. I will explain more into the podcast into that. But I'm an only child. Yeah, and you are fascinated by geography and history. Obviously, if you like traveling, you would be. Yeah, very good. You love animals, as I've seen.
With the cats.
with the
Beautiful cats he has, by the way.
Yeah. And you believe in fairness and equality, and injustice frustrates you.
It does. It gets me riled
Okay.
up. There's not many things that get me riled up as much as injustice in humanity in day-to-day life. Do you know what I mean?
So, welcome to the podcast. Now that the introduction is over, obviously everyone else knows me from my drives in my car and rubbling on. Most of people they don't even get to understand what's this guy on about. But anyway, this is where all it was leading to this moment, and hopefully many more like this. So, Formula One. Talk to me about it.
So Formula One. So where do I start? I mean, look, at the moment, I do a contract. I'm a contractor just like yourself, obviously. I work in Formula One at the moment. And many people would... It's very interesting because many people think that working in Formula One, there's this narrow certain path that you nurture from university to working in F1, and there's like internship levels. There's other ways of getting into Formula One. And in my opinion, contracting, self-employment and ownership of your own work is one of the quickest paths you can make your way into F1 when you prove yourself.
Yeah.
And I not
I
only
agree.
work in it, but I also been a massive fan of the sport. As I said to you, I've long before since I worked in a sport, I've been a huge fan since I was 11 years old, watching every single,
Wow.
still do to this day, race, qualifying, most of the practices as well.
Wow, you would have a great session with my partner. She's not here at the minute, but she's the same. If she can't because she's working every other weekend, she's working, and she puts it on record. She won't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch it, but she'll definitely not won't miss to put it on record. And I find that fascinating because we kind of complement each other like a duo. I build the cars, I build the parts in the factory, and she watches the race. So I should be the one looking at the race and being, I build that and I build that part and I've done that. Well, it's nothing like that. I literally, and I don't know, don't you find it like a lot of people in our own industry, they're not very interested in what happens on the track. They just, it's a means to an end sometimes, isn't it?
Mate, you'd be so like surprised about this specific point actually, because so many people would think that working in F1, you're gonna meet so many other passionate people working in F1. You're gonna be just surrounded by people who are just super driven, who are just thinking, watching every single race, and then talking about the race and debating it afterwards. No chance. Like genuinely, I'd say actually more than half of people, which is a bit unfortunate, of people that I get to work with or people that I've met in Formula One don't care about the sport. You know, they're not that bothered. And I understand that. And I don't even necessarily blame them because it's one of those, it's the pinnacle of the industry. So if you want to realistically earn the top money and if you want to be the best you can at your job, either being at a top supplier or an F1 team is what you look to, or having your own company. So I understand it. And I wouldn't necessarily blame the people, but it's, you would expect a little bit more passion, a little bit more drive from some of that. And somebody like myself who, like I said, I live and breathe Formula One, even though I understand to an aspect, football, Formula One, all of these things, it's bread. You know, like the Romans have said, give them bread, give them circus.
Yeah.
It's a distraction. It's a circus, sorry, not bread.
Yeah.
It's a distraction with whatever else is going on. But hell of a good distraction it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Definitely is. Definitely is. Well, I don't know. We'll find slight differences. I think you have worked directly with teams, with Formula One teams. I'll be honest, I haven't. So the highest of my Formula One builds are tier 1 suppliers. I can name quite a few of the companies. Unfortunately, they don't sponsor us yet. So hopefully, if they want to come on as sponsors, we will mention them in future podcasts. But for now, we'll keep that as is. But yeah, tier 1 suppliers. So the experience might be slightly different in the case of they are a bit more, they are very Formula One focused, but they have other jobs to do. So they might be doing aerospace, they might be doing some motorsport, some other things in between. So at the end of the day, I think it happens that they want a more output, more parts coming out of the doors, and selling more. Turnover, making money. It's a factory at the end of the day. But nevertheless, the quality, the precision, the build, the structure, everything else still has to be there. So it can't be missed. Drawings and specifications have to be followed. Documentation, everything has traceability. So it probably isn't that much different from working for a direct team. For me, to be honest, I had one of the big teams, Williams. They did, not them directly, but an agent contacted and said if I would like to go on a team. And for me personally, at my age, and with at the time I think 4 years old, my younger son, I said, do I really want to be away out of the country, traveling through the world from point to point and not seeing my family for a whole year for what, 50 grand a year, maybe something like that, somewhere about that. Because you become basically permanent staff.
It's a big sacrifice. Yeah. Like it's all a big sacrifice.
It's a huge sacrifice, and for me personally, I said no.
Yeah.
I said no. But nevertheless, I carry on my work as a contractor,
I think, that whole thing of being a part of the team versus being at a supplier, it's, for those of you who don't know, the whole composite industry, it's hugely tight-knit. It's very small. Most people know each other.
Yeah.
And even people working in suppliers, people working in F1 teams, at one point they cross paths, they work together, or they know someone who worked with somebody else like that. And I'm not going to say their name, but a supplier you're at, very well known, people at the Formula One team.
They've been on the market for over 30 years.
Very long time. Yeah. And people at even my Formula One team, they've worked there at one point. One of the guys that I work with, who's one of their supervisors there, he's been there for a very, very long time. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, there's a post I made recently on LinkedIn, and for those of you who know me personally or somehow follow me on LinkedIn, you can see that there. And obviously, A lot of these suppliers, they do apprenticeship schemes as well. So you're talking earlier about how to get into Formula One. So if you're someone like my son who wants to look into engineering and maybe become a 3D CAD designer or an engineer or whatever, and wants to follow that path and get into Formula One, there's one opportunity for them, isn't it? So they can take in the 3-year apprenticeship where they get a little bit of money. I don't know if it's somewhere like minimum wage or whatever, which is obviously good because that's helped by the state. So basically the government puts help towards that and helps companies to build these apprenticeships. So once you've done a 3 years apprenticeship, basically you're as good as gold and you can go and work for anyone, whether you I think some of them, they do a little bit of a mistake because they think they've done a 3 years apprenticeship and they think they can jump on straight to being a contractor, which is not the case. So in my example, I've been in this industry for over a decade now, and we're going to talk about carbon in a little bit and what is and what isn't. But I still think I have things to learn over a decade, and there's still things that I don't know. I don't know every single trick in the book. There's still things that, doing something a little bit quicker or a little bit easier here and there, and something. Even the other day, someone taught me, the flash tape, the blue tape, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
So on the tacky tape, when you do the bagging and all that, they just put flash tape all over it. And I was, why are you doing that? It's such a waste of flash tape. And says, you'll see in a minute. So when he ripped off the bag, because we were using the bags for debogs to save obviously consumables and money. Yeah. No, it doesn't stretch the bag.
Ah, right, okay.
It
so
doesn't stretch the bag,
yeah.
and it doesn't stretch the tacky. So it all comes up in one. You're peeling up the bag with the tacky as well at the same time. And I was like, oh, I never knew that. And it's like, I've been doing this for over 10 years, but I've never saw someone doing it, and I haven't done it myself. I haven't tried it. So I was like, no, that's a good way. Why not?
Something similar to what I've been doing when I was doing a contract in Germany, where I used to do a lot of bagging up on, obviously, stuff like DTM, GT3, Mercedes, SLS, AMGs and stuff like that. And there's a similar trick to that where if you're bagging up on a flat plate, where you tacky the flat plate and then you can pick it up all together in what, like you say, the bag, essentially. And there's many other random tricks, like another one with a flash tape where, for example, if you forgot to mask up some of your holes that are over 8 mils, you can actually flash tape the bag itself. Yeah. And that's going to stop it from getting sucked into the hole. Like, it's such a lot of random little tricks.
It stops the bag stretching, correct? Because the bags themselves, the saying goes in the industry, they stretch up to 8 times their actual size. So, but we're not going to get into too many technicalities because, it'll take forever. We'll be here all day. About carbon, so I don't know how you started. I know that you went and had a certain course, or you went and had engineering, right?
So obviously, first of all, I've went to school. Obviously, here in the UK, the way it works is you've got your primary school, and then you come up to year 7 when you're about 12 or something like that, and then obviously you stay in school till you're like 16, and then you can choose to do like a college or sixth form. I ended up going for sixth form, where I've taken up engineering and I've studied that up to distinction level, which is like the top grade that you can get. And I've always been fascinated and passionate about the industry itself. I just never quite knew that I wanted to go into composites. So I've taken the first couple of years of my career because, as I mentioned, I've been hugely into Formula One. I worked in IT for the first, 2 years. I was actually in IT. I was doing service support. I was doing even just like first line, second line support, all sorts of stuff. So actually getting to know people around the Formula One team where I started off my IT career. But after doing a couple of years in IT, I've realised this isn't what I want to do. Being sat behind a computer is not for me, and working with my hands actually, it works to my strengths a lot more than being sat behind a computer. I think very logically, but not in that aspect. Do you know what I mean? So I then ended up going and taking a step back to take 2 steps forwards. And because I was on, to be fair, at the age of 19, I was on 30k in IT. So I had to take a step back to go down to 19k basically with a trainee position. And actually something interesting to what you said there with apprenticeship stuff and people doing, let's say, 3 years of apprenticeship and then thinking they can go and become contractors. I actually did 18 months of just trainee position, and then I just took a dive and just went to Germany for a year to do my first contract.
Nice.
That was my first ever contract. I did 18 months of, it was about 8 to 10 months of training, and then it turned into an actual permanent junior position, but obviously a junior laminator, right?
Yeah.
From trainee laminator to junior laminator. And after 18 months, I just thought, I actually feel fairly confident with what I'm doing, because the place I was at, I'm not going to mention their names. Look, not the 100% best players, and from most people in the industry, I've heard some stories and some negative feedback as well. I'm not going to go too into detail. I don't want to put anyone down, but the positive from that experience is we got thrown straight into the deep end.
Well, that's where you learn the most, because sometimes I've learned, sometimes I step down from, my position in one of the suppliers. When the quiet season, the summer comes, sometimes, unfortunately, our contracts get to an end. And, like all good things, they don't last forever. Now, what I do, I have a couple of friends in the industry, obviously, like everyone else, a couple of agents here and there, a couple of managers here and there that I made friends along the years. And, I take a position in some other place as a contractor. And one of the places is quite close to me in Basingstoke, and I spent quite some time there. And even though I would say not as advanced as a Formula One supplier or Formula One team in regards to all the CNCs and all the CAD and designing and engineering upstairs and all that, jazz, I found that they had a lot of things that they were done the old-fashioned way, as you get your tape measure and you start measuring, and where you get and you have to improvise and you have to come up with an idea yourself and come up with a solution to come with a good part to come out and build something, whether that is a post, a pillar, or part that it would have been for whatever, and that's when you learn the most, because when you got everything, like I find sometimes with suppliers, with Formula One work in general, everything is to the book. Everything is to the drawing. You can't deviate. You have to understand the drawing, read it. If you don't understand it, obviously you find a supervisor or team leader or an engineer or whatever, and you get clarity around what is going on. Or you find someone that's done the job. I've been accused so many times that, wow, you go and talk to people instead of reading the drawing. So I'm like, well, I can understand the drawing, but sometimes in my head, so I don't know how you work around this, but myself, I don't just work with my hands. I look at something and I have to make a
visualize it,
in my
finished
head,
product.
Exactly. So if I'm looking at this bottle or whatever, and I see it on paper, I see a 2D picture. And even though I've seen it in different angles and drawings and whatnot, I still have to make up in my head what is expected, what is the final product is going to look like. And there's little tabs, little things hidden that you can't really see on a piece of paper sometimes. So you either run to the trim shop and have a look at a finished one that's already, or speak to someone who's done it already. And they can already walk you through a step and say, right, I've done the first half of this, and I know, make sure that is specifically in that corner or there and there, pay attention to this, that, and the other. And it saves you so much time rather than you sometimes trying to figure it out. Because sometimes, I'll be honest, I get a mental block and I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
I can't. When people sometimes explain these things to me or explain how to do a certain procedure when laminating, like cutting a certain ply in a certain way or getting a different material, doing it that way, like I always say to them, I can't quite visualize it. I always say the same thing as well. I can't quite picture it in my head. Do you know what I mean? How it looks. So I do the similar thing with you, but two interesting points onto what you brought up there. So number one, so what you said there is that when obviously at a supplier, you get your manual and everything is perfectly laid out and you have to follow it to a T. Very interesting thing. You'd be very surprised at F1 teams. Manuals are wrong. Some of the manuals can be wrong.
A lot of times.
But a lot of that is because it's the peak, the forefront of the engineering industry, right? So things change every day. Like one week you can start working on a chassis or a floor of the car. You come in on, by the time it's Friday, it's a completely different layout.
You get updates.
It's like 6 different updates in 1 week, you know. So, and sometimes they haven't got time to update anymore because you're trying to move with the time. You're trying to undercut other teams and be quicker in your production, right? So that you can release your car or your chassis or your floor or whatever into crash tests so that you can pass the FIA crash test. So, yeah, very often, even the manuals and following the manual doesn't necessarily mean you've done it the proper way. And very often times you're going to have 15 people around one chassis in the clean room, basically going over, do you know what I mean, whether this is the right way of doing it, basically. Definitely. And the other point is, this is something I'd be interested in. What work do we, as F1 teams, outsource to suppliers? Because I understand, from my understanding, it's the stuff that's a spec series, right? So like an F2 is a spec series where all the cars are essentially almost the same with minor differences. Formula 1, certain parts are to spec. So brake drums, for example, most of teams will have similar brake drums, and that's one thing that I've worked on when I was at suppliers, for
you're
example.
Coming into my territory now because I've done a lot of brakes. So
there you go.
For the past so many years, like these suppliers has been for at least a year and a half now. I do brakes, a lot of brakes. I worked on floors as well. I work on chassis. I work on anything I need to. Like I say, as soon as I understand the drawing, as soon as I can work on anything. That's no problem for me. And you can throw me on the deep end. Like I say, I know there's people, there's support to help you, and there's no an issue. And I'm confident enough, obviously, after all these years. But brakes. So brakes is one of the things that you get a lot. Floors, we get a lot. There's certain teams that they send floors. In different companies that I worked with, I've worked on floors as well. Side panels as well.
Side pods,
the side pods as well. There's something that I've seen a lot going on. Now it depends. I think it depends on the supplier. And I think it depends how well positions are
within the hierarchy.
Yeah,
yes.
And I think it depends on their connections as well. Because I can tell you, I know from different suppliers, different factories or different companies that I worked with along the years, they always have their connection points up in the office. So the people, when a drawing is, like you're saying, is not updated, when something, so they do their conversations back and forth, whether it's through the phone, whether it's through email, whatever, however they do it. That's, I'm not going to get into that because that is their department, not mine. So they get someone who's the connection point. And obviously that connection point, if you get someone who's very well known in the industry, what happens then, obviously he's going to bring in other stuff. He's going to bring that person, that individual. It's a bit like a household name, like branding. We're not going to talk about names of brands, but like everything we know that's established on the market, they got a name brand. Whether we're talking about cars, whether we're talking about coffee machines, speakers, whatever you want, every product has a brand. Very rarely you're going to have to find a white brand unless it's clothing or something. And even then, probably the factory will sell it in a huge number for you to put your own brand on it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So these individuals, they have their name in the industry very well established, and they know a lot of people, and they bring work in. So, they capture that, because they are friends, and it works like this. I think everything in life, like we said before we started the recording, is not what you know, sometimes it's who you know. So the more people you know and the better connected you are, the more successful you get.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. So for those that don't know, most of F1 teams, like we just broke down there, they keep the in-house stuff that's often changed, like the floors and the chassis, often in-house, so that the laminators directly at the team can change it, with upgrades throughout the season, every single week. Yeah. And then, like we said, the spec stuff, so wheel drums. And once a team has a very good deep connection with a certain supply company, they end up outsourcing even the really important in-depth part, like the floors, to obviously the supplier company. But most of the stuff that gets updated often, like rear wings, front wings, etc., that gets kept in-house so that they can update it and they can get the engineers from the DO down, design office all the time, etc., and have them updated. And 100%. And like you said, there is probably a lot of backdoor handshakes and backdoor deals that happen in the industry realistically with how good of a relationship they have with one another and who they know and how long they've been working together. And they definitely work together. I don't want to, allegedly, they work together to an extent where they try and keep other companies and other new places popping up out of the industry to not.
There's a lot of red tape.
Yes,
There is a bit like our red chairs here. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of even probably very capable companies. They are kept away through that. But to be honest, wouldn't you do the same if you'd have so many years of experience of hard work and everything that you built and built a reputation and done all that? Wouldn't you do the same, as in you would want to safekeep and safeguard that position, not necessarily by keeping someone else, but by saying, no, you have to prove yourself first before you're allowed into the club, kind of thing?
I hear what you're saying. To an extent, I agree. It's just, doesn't that become gatekeeping? Do you know what I mean? In the end,
but
and then
everything is gatekeeping.
But
Dave.
then that's against the free reign of capitalism in a way.
It's
of
not.
like it's
No,
a
it's not.
completely open door.
I will disagree there. You went to be an engineer. You had to go to an engineering school. That's your gatekeeping. You want to be a medical physician. You want to be a surgeon. You want to be a psychologist, whatever. You have to go through 5 years of hard work and hardship and prove yourself at the end and have all that done. They're not gonna just, you are very great, you are good, let's get you to surgery on open heart. They're not, are they?
So in certain industries, I understand, like surgeon and then doctors, etc. I understand what you're saying. I'm behind that. It's just in industries like composites, does that then go to show that in often cases it's about paying your dues in industry, and it's not about how good you are or what you can show you can do, but it's about building your brand up and paying your dues. So in often cases, you do then end up with people in the composite industry who aren't necessarily amazing at what they do.
No.
They've just been doing it for long enough. And you get to see that in F1, you get to see that in all sorts of
like I said earlier, it's who
it.
you know. It's who you know, not what you know sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is. And once someone, I'll be very honest. Like, Ivan, do me a favor. Would you pass me that mirror that's there on the table near the cap, please? Yes. So these are my beginnings, right? This is
very cool. Yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna get very nerdy now, but you're probably nerdy as well, or as nerdy as me. I'll have you. This is not a finished product, and this is something I mocked up, right? To see, to kind of give a little bit of, understanding of where my beginnings are, right? What I've started with. So that's a normal car, BMW, I think it is, or something, a mirror, yeah?
Road car.
A road car, nothing special. And that is just a cover, basically, of carbon. On top of it, one layer of carbon on top of it, which was homemade, no special equipment.
Yeah.
Probably not even a vacuum pump on that, if I'm honest, because it's plastic and it would all bend and crack and go out of shape.
Just room temperature, normal.
Yeah,
cure.
normal epoxy cure over 24 hours, polished, sanded back, and a bit of spray. It's got still some fibers on it, not a very clean piece of work.
There's a bit of sanding, probably a bit of finishing, bit of relacquering.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks good. It's something you can do at home. There's so much of this stuff you can do at home.
A lot of people, they start at that level. I started at that level, and I worked my way to the point where I had a garage back in Portugal. Some of the work was done on my, what we call a marquee, so like a big balcony with sliding windows. So would get loads of air in and stuff. And because fumes, resins, all these things. But that's where a lot of people, so if you'd see on Facebook, stuff that comes from China, from eBay or whatever people buy it, online platforms, that's the sort of stuff. Now you are the expert today. I'm going to extract myself from the equation, and you tell me if that is something that you would put on a Formula One car, or even on a motorsport, let's say high spec, whatever high spec over £250,000 car.
Are we talking this exact pad?
No, I'm talking about the craftsmanship, about sort of how it's built.
So, because obviously of the limited environment that you were working with and the limited resources and tools you're working with, it wouldn't pass. It would be nowhere near a pass. And that's for a reason, obviously. I mean, I'm guessing this is a wet lay as well. Yep. Whereas most of Formula One and most of the industry is pre-impregnated carbon fiber, where the actual epoxy resin has already been induced within the fibers, and then it gets rolled up and it gets frozen and put into massive freezers. So that, first of all, eliminates a lot of the quality issues, right? And a lot of the, like, say, distortion on the plies. Like you can see up here, there's a bit of a distortion. I don't know if you can see that. It's like when the material is pulled. And
we'll do on post and put some pictures, close-ups for people to see,
and also
to have an idea. Yeah, to have an idea. So when you see parts like this all over selling platforms on the internet, you probably see something like this. Maybe if it's a good quality one, I'm not talking about this, but something on a good quality with spotless, basically maybe even without a distortion and all that. You'll probably see maybe for a pair 100 quid, let's call it, yeah, so £100. Now if you do something at the level we do, would you think it will equate on the price? How much on the price you'd think it would be on top?
Hugely. It's another...
Well, we're talking 5 times, 10 times?
I reckon easily 5 to 10 times, in that range.
So we'd be looking for a set of mirrors for, I don't know, any super sports car. We're looking over £1,000 coming out of the door of the factory, of the supplier. Yeah.
Yes,
we're not talking what the dealership would put on a price when the person is looking to buy the car and spec it. We're talking factory to the.
Okay. Yeah. Well, of course, depending on the actual car. If we're talking Aston Martin Valkyrie, that will be a couple thousand for a set of. Do you know what I mean? Of just wing mirrors, And if we're talking more road car like M Sport, BMWs and stuff like that, yes, we're still going to be talking about, if you want to go out and buy it somewhere, you're looking at about £1,000 for a set of these. So if you do want to save up, if you do want to cheap out, let's put it that way, do you know what I mean? And go and spend a little bit less than it would be worth, then it's going to reflect in the quality of the product. Obviously, that, for example, in F1 will have to go through NDT, non-destructive testing. So
correct.
It would all have to get scanned and see where the weak points around the material are, see whether... for example, you've missed up a little bit of the ply and it could be a little bit weak there, or see if you haven't got a metal core fully consolidated in a corner and there's a void of air, which will create another weak spot. And things like that will not normally be done on pads like this, for example. This will just be done in someone's shed or in someone's garage or on someone's marquee.
Yeah, exactly. So saying that, would you agree then that it's probably a good idea? So these were my beginnings, and I got to a point where I had a small kind of, making interiors for people, for tuning and motorsport.
Like skinning almost, right?
Skinning, that is skinning.
Yeah, literally. Straight, take a mold straight off of the actual part, basically.
Yeah, take a mold, and sometimes not even take a mold, just build it on the part and leave it there with the part.
Which sacrifices the part itself in most cases.
Well, it might not sacrifice it, because at the end of the day, it's a bit of plastic. So structurally, it's not, we see so many that they get knocked off when two cars go too close one by another on the road. But I'm not saying it's adding weight as well, just for the sake of the aesthetics.
Because it's 2 on top, so you're technically not saving weight in carbon fiber, you're adding weight.
You're adding weight, in this case. Yeah. Where what we do, we're not adding weight because the part itself is made out of carbon.
It's just the initial investment of having a mold in the first place, because most of these...
You're looking to at least a couple of grand for just that little mold.
Because it would have to be...
Labour, materials, autoclave time, exactly.
And pattern block, and the pattern blocks on their own, it can be like 40, 50 grand, and a pattern block you pull off of a pattern block just to create a mold. So that's not even what you're laminating to start creating pads. That's just the first ever design of how a mold is going to look, if that makes any sense. So if you have a wing mirror, let's say on a new BMW 8 series, like the 8M or whatever, M8, right? So they would have to create a pattern block off the wing mirror, then laminate the pattern block, get a mold off of that, and that mold will then be used to create X amount of pads, obviously.
And plus the engineering hours, whoever's going to do the CAD as well, not just the machining time and all that. But anyway, I think we had enough of this, and it's getting a bit too geeky for some people, and I'm sure we could talk all day about these things.